So basically, I'm going to do one big video and review the 6 Ryan Nicholson Unearthed Films Blu-rays that have been released so far. I still think they're supposed to release Gutterballs 2 and maybe BF, is it BFG or something like that? Or BFM, something like that. There's still a couple that I think they're still going to come out with. But for like the last 5 years, basically, this is what they have released. Before I get into this, I have already reviewed on this channel Gutterballs and Live Feed. I did so like 4 years ago, and I went back and I watched those. I'm still pretty well feel the same as I did then about those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just one big video for these reviews, and I'm going to download and insert those 2 old reviews, but I will do some new footage in those where I will just show you the release up close. I thought about doing individual releases for these, but apparently I think things get more traction when you do big videos. So in the number that's on the catalog here, we're going to do Famine. We've got Gutterballs. We've got Live Feed. Get these spread out here. We've got Starvehicle, which was also released and known as the Bleeding Lady at one point. And then lastly, the last 2, we have Hanger and Torch. So yeah, we're going to get into these reviews. We're going to post the old reviews in the middle of getting into these reviews. And let's just have us like a celebration of Ryan Nicholson films, because I feel like he's pretty underrated nowadays. He was pretty big at one point, but now I feel like maybe we don't talk about him as enough as we should. So let's do these reviews. So here we have Famine, which I can safely say is probably my least favorite out of all the Ryan Nicholson movies. I had seen this years ago. I think around the time it came out, maybe before it officially came out, because I feel like someone had sent me a bootleg of this. And going back and watching it now, all these years later, it felt like it was a little better than what I thought it was the first time I watched it. But I also feel like there was more to it this time than there was originally. Like, I don't have that file or whatever it was anymore, so I don't know. I feel like someone sent me a DVD-R of it, but either way, it had more blood and guts to it this time than it had the previous time that I watched it, or at least it felt like it did. This thing is about a group of people that are staying at a high school at a famine, which basically they're going to go 24 hours without eating anything and stay at school for some school credit. And the previous time that they had done it, some bad stuff had happened, and a teacher basically got melted, or their face got melted. And the thing is it feels like a Ryan Nicholson film with the dialogue and the way the characters act, but for one time, it feels like maybe the characters are too annoying for their own good. It feels like the characters are just a little too much on screen, and when you finally kind of settle into them, you still really don't have anybody likable, because even the most likable person comes across as a complete idiot. Uh, it's almost like these kids are supposed to have something wrong with them, and I don't know if that's just the way it was written or the way they just went with it. They kind of schlocked it up, because he does kind of do that with his movies. But for some reason, this time around, it doesn't seem to fit in. Maybe it's because this time around it actually looks better than any other Ryan Nicholson movie on Blu-ray, because most of these movies do not look good on Blu-ray. But Famine looked pretty good. And when there was gore, I thought it looked really good. There's a couple of really good kills. There's a few that's kind of tame, but there's some that's like on par with what you would expect from a Ryan Nicholson movie. There's a guy running around in a like mascot thing doing the killing at some point. Um, there's a lot of hot women. There's a lot of nudity. There's sexual stuff. There's tasteless jokes. There's things that probably would not fly these days, but still, when all that happens, if you really think about it, there's some sequences that happen, and the way they should have happened is in a different order than what they happen on screen. It's just stuff that like you probably aren't supposed to notice, but I noticed it. And there's just things like there's a twist with the ending, and when you really think about it, it just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever if you take some other things in consideration. So the ending and the characters to me kind of held this one back, and I only give it a 2 out of 5. Like I said, it's my least favorite of his films. I'm guessing it may be the least favorite of everybody, because this thing has really no extras whatsoever. We've got a still gallery, we've got Unearthed trailers, and that is about it. Now, it looks cool. It's typical slasher stuff, and it's got a whole lot of blood and guts at times. But they really pull the buckets and the gallons of blood out when they need them. But for some reason, this thing just does not work like you think it would or it should. But yeah, it's worth a watch if you like Ryan Nicholson movies, because it does feel like a Ryan Nicholson movie, even if it looks better than most of his movies look. But I feel like he lost a step later with his films, and this is probably the first point of things not working. Oddly enough, they had a quote about it. I don't even remember what it is. You can go look at it if it's still there. But the Famine Wikipedia page had a quote from when I reviewed this movie years ago on it. I don't know if it's still there, but it's a slasher. It's still better than probably a lot of straight to DVD slashers that came out at the time. But having this was like the one I seen after I first watched Gutterballs, so it was kind of a letdown because I thought Gutterballs was amazing. But it's okay, but it really just it's poorly written or poorly edited, one or the other. It just doesn't make any sense.
We've got one more from Unearthed Films. This is carrying on the Ryan Nicholson line. This is live feed here in the regular version and like an uncut version as well on the extras. I seen this one probably for the first time last year or the year before last. I had the old like was it Vultra video VHS of it that I never did watch, but I had it forever. But I didn't watch it until I got the DVD. Of course, now here's the Blu-ray. First time I watched it, I don't know if I was in a bad mood or what was the case, but the first time I watched it, I wasn't as crazy about it as I was this time. I liked it better this time around. I don't know, that happens sometimes. You watch a movie and something's going on, you don't like it. You watch it again and you end up enjoying it more than you did before. But this is about a group of people who are in like China. I think it's China, or at least in Chinatown in real life, but it's probably supposed to be full-fledged China in the movie. And they're just kind of get in the wrong place at the wrong time because they get in between like it's like a yakuza thing. But I don't know what they call it in China, if it's called a yakuza, but it's a mob boss, and there's a butcher on the street that's butchering animals, but now he's butchering people, and they're doing it in a porno theater. So a bunch of extreme stuff, which fits the MO for Ryan Nicholson. He was always like about stuff like that with his movies, but nonetheless, these people go and they get trapped in the porno theater, and there's this big old butcher and these other people trying to pick them off, and there's like this Japanese cop or this Japanese man whose brother was a cop, and he was kind of like took care of early in the movies, but he's there kind of for revenge to seek justice, and he kind of ends up liking one of the girls in this group, and he's trying to save them. With most Ryan Nicholson movies, you won't always find the most likable bunch of people, and there is some excessive, use of foul words, which I've done that in my movies as well. I think it's funny. I'm sure they thought it was funny. Sometimes it's a little awkward, but if you're watching a Ryan Nicholson movie, you're probably not watching it for the witty dialogue. You're probably just watching it for the gore. And if you're doing that, live feed definitely delivers on the gore front. And with the uncut version here that's on this as well, you get even more of that. It looks okay. Now, you remember I come on here and I said that Gutterballs didn't look that good. And it didn't. But live feed looks better, but still maybe not great. And you gotta look at the time period for this stuff. This is what was this? It's 2005 movie. Probably was never made with the intentions of being on Blu-ray. Not sure what the source is or what exactly it was shot on, but it looks okay, but it definitely don't look great. Looks better than the DVD, because if I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure the DVD had that weird letterbox thing where you had black bars all around. It's good here. The ratio's alright and everything, so that part of it's good. The movie gets a little weird in parts, but better on the second watch than it was the first watch, and of course you cannot deny the gore is great. So 3 out of 5 for me for live feed. Of course, this comes with commentary by Ryan Nicholson and cast. Behind the Blood, the making of live feed. Return to the Theater, which I watched that, and it's a little weird. It's like they just kind of have the camera there, hoping nobody would say nothing to them. Deleted scenes, and alternate ending. I prefer the ending it actually went with. Video feed, room service short film, which is just weird thing. It's kind of like just one of the porn things they show in the movie. Photo gallery and trailers. But here is the look of the case. Like I said, as a fan of Ryan Nicholson in general, I tolerated live feed much better the second time around than I did the first. So if you like his stuff, this is prime Ryan Nicholson, pretty much. Like, not as good as Gutterballs, but better than probably, Famine and stuff like that. So, still waiting for my Torched Blu-ray to get in so I can review that one. Still waiting for Starvehicle or The Bleeding Lady, which is one of my favorite Ryan Nicholson movies. I think they've announced it. I hope it comes out soon. But you can get all these from Unearthed Films.
I wrote a review about Plot Diggers, Gutterballs, directed by Ryan Nicholson, a long time ago. Like, it was one of the first, or maybe not one of the first, but kind of like in the middle of the first decade that I ran ZombiesDon'tRun.net and did reviews. This one came through with, I don't remember the company, but it was a DVD, it was Gutterballs, and it wasn't like one of the 5,000 other variants of the film, but I got to review it then, and I loved it, and I love it now. But now it's on Blu-ray from Unearthed Films. Now, this is the single disc version. There is a 2-disc version, and we'll get into all the details of this one here in a second. But if you've never seen the movie, it's a modernized indie horror, extreme indie horror slasher by the late, some say great, Ryan Nicholson, because I like a majority of his films. And it features the plot of like two rival bowling teams that kind of get into a bit of a fight one night while they're trying to bowl, and one of them's girlfriend ends up getting savagely raped by the other team. So when they return the next day for after hours bowling, all of a sudden a mysterious name on the player chart pops up, BBK, which is the bowling bag killer, and ends up cutting through these people in very gruesome and graphic fashion, fashionable ways. In my idea, or I should say in my opinion, this is a modern masterpiece. This is from, as I scramble for the year 2008. Probably would have been my favorite film of 2008. Probably one of my favorite slashers of that decade, if not the favorite slasher. When it comes to indie slashers, this is like the epitome of indie slashers, in my opinion. I don't think Ryan Nicholson ever reached this again. And I remember when I first seen Famine, which is the only other Unearthed Blu-ray of his that's out right now as of this video. I was very disappointed in it because I don't think it ever reached to this level, and this was the level I was going for. Just gruesome kills, extremely violent. It's very vulgar. There's quite a bit of nudity in it. Women bend over without underwear. Typical breasts. People get killed in sexual positions. It's that type of thing. But one of the more probably overlooked aspects of it, when you look past the gore and you look past all the bells and whistles that this thing has, not to mention the unique setting that it has, because how many slashers take place in a bowling alley? You have Dan Ellis, who I think is a modern day master of horror acting, and he was in Ryan Nicholson's other film, The Bleeding Lady, also known as Starvehicle. He was in another one, I think the second American Guinea Pig movie. The guy's great, and he's great here as like the bowling alley manager, and he just plays like a very unique character, and I think he really stands out in a very good way. Of course, he plays a pivotal role in the plot as it goes on, and if you were going to give any kind of an award to an actor for any kind of independent horror film, especially extreme independent horror, I believe Dan Ellis at this point needs an achievement award, but he especially needs an award for his performance here. I love it that much. The other characters, a little hit and miss. They're probably the only reason I wouldn't give this a perfect 5 out of 5. Because there are some annoying characters in this movie, but that only means you want to see them die that much more, and usually most of them die in pretty gruesome ways. And there is a pretty interesting plot that has some twists along the way that I'm not going to spoil, because if you've never seen it, you need to go see it. You need to pick this up. There's this version. There's a 2-disc version, but now the one thing I want to say is I don't know what Gutterballs was filmed on. The DVD looked okay for what it was, but if you're heading into this Blu-ray and you're expecting this movie to look really, really good, this movie does not look that good. I'm going to be inserting screenshots directly from the disc throughout this review, and I just want you to know that those are top quality, and that's unfortunately how this thing looks. I don't know if it was shot on some kind of digital video. I don't know if it was actually real film. If it, in the case of it being perhaps real film, I think it might have been a situation of the lighting might have been off or something because things just do not look very good. That being said, the movie is still great, and also available on this being just a single disc version, you have the penetration edition, which is, from what I can tell from what I watched, a much more graphic rape scene. And what that means is you have up close vaginal exposure here on screen, and we have what I read was a rubber penis that actually penetrates, and there's some other graphic stuff of that nature there. So that version is here. That was a whole other version you had to buy separate back in the day. So it's great that Unearthed actually put that on here. You also get a commentary with director Ryan Nicholson, behind the balls, the making of Gutterballs, and a photo gallery. That's all right here on this one. Like I said, there's a 2 disc version, I think, which has maybe a whole lot of extra interviews or something to go along with it, or a soundtrack or something like that. There's a 2 disc version. I don't really know what's on that because I don't have that. But as for just the standard Gutterballs Blu-ray, it's very much worth owning. Probably, in my opinion, the greatest Ryan Nicholson movie ever made. It's a 4 out of 5. Uh, as far as looks go on the Blu-ray, it doesn't look good. If you had to do like a 5 scale, it probably looks maybe a 2 out of 5. It's above Troma's Rabbit Granny's Blu-ray, but it's still way down the ranks of good-looking Blu-rays. But I love having it on Blu-ray, and I love having the penetration edition on it. So for that alone, plus I think the other DVD's out of print, I would say pick this up. Unearthed Films, distributed by MVD. It's Gutterballs. It's the second Plot Digger film to be released from Unearthed Films. I'm not sure. I think the next one might be Live Feed. I'm not sure. But I want every one of these because I was a fan of Ryan Nicholson. I never had any problems with him. Of course, I never tried to back any of the stuff. But the man's not here, but he did some good work. And I'm hoping that, as of right now, I think the plan is to have pretty much all of his stuff come out through Unearthed on Blu-ray. So I'm looking very much forward to that. Although, while some may say Hanger or something like that, or maybe even The Bleeding Lady, which is really good, for my money, this is the greatest thing he did. So, if you have seen it, this is a good version to own, just to have that in the penetration edition and everything all here. If you've never seen it, you need to see it. So, Gutterballs. So apparently I have went this long and never watched Hanger. How I've never watched Hanger, I don't know. I had a VHS of it from Vulture Video and I never watched it. But nonetheless, here it is, 2 disc collection, Unearthed Films. This was a movie that I had friends that talked about it a lot. The old original Extra Cast guys, Beard and Vincent, used to talk about it because I think there was some kind of controversy with a pre-order or a special order and a colostomy bag edition or something, and I don't know if they ever got it, or maybe that was kind of like the start of the whole controversy with what Ryan Nicholson was doing on his GoFundMe's. I don't know. But nonetheless, here is Hanger, a sick and twisted film to say the least, but right up there as far as quality and bad taste goes with Gutterballs, which, like I said, Gutterballs is still my favorite. This one might be a close second. So basically, we've got this prostitute that's pregnant, played by Debbie Rochon. This guy right here is kind of like the one guy that's nice to her. Dan Ellis, legend in the independent film scene. So her pimp, though, finds out that she's holding back a little bit of money, and he does some stuff with her with a coat hanger, and the baby is thought to be killed and threw away, but the baby ends up being Hanger, and when he's ushered out with the character that Dan plays here, he's ushered out into the real world. There's a look at Hanger there. He's all deformed up. He's got a roommate that is supposed to be Asian. It's definitely a white guy playing an Asian. Probably wouldn't fly these days, but at the time, I guess it's anything goes. And I'm a guy that's not easily offended, so I found humor in it. Although I would understand if some people, if their head would explode to see a man faking an Asian accent. But nonetheless, they all work at like this junk place. There's another guy at the junk place, and they're kind of working there. But you have this really, really hot secretary that's played by the same girl who's like one of the main girls in Gutterballs. And then all the while, Dan's character is plotting to use Hanger to kill the pimp that killed his mother and the lady that he loved that was played by David Rochon. So if you got all that's basically what's going on along the way. There's a lots and lots of gross things going on. There's a lot of a lot of sexual misconduct going on in this film, both of the man, women, and man variety. There is tons of gore, tons of gross things. Like, this is one of the more grosser horror films, and when you see where the colostomy bag thing comes into play, you'll realize just how over the line and twisted and sick this movie really is. But it's still very, very fun. It's very entertaining. It's modern day Grindhouse, or it was at the time, and it's the type of movie that they don't make anymore, probably because they can't make it anymore. But I enjoyed it, and I put it up there with Gutterballs. Not quite as good as Gutterballs. I give it a 3.5, where I think Gutterballs was like a 4. Somebody's coughing in my house. That's great. But this 2 disc collector's edition has a commentary with Ryan Nicholson. Behind the Storm, the making of Hanger. Enough dope to hang yourself with on the set with Lloyd Kaufman. Photo gallery, blooper reel, deleted scenes, black on white bread. That's like the porn film they're watching in the movie. Colostomy bag edition is included. Additional scene, trailer, behind the scenes, over 16 hours of additional extras. So the colostomy bag scene is basically like the up close, up close penetration thing that I told you about that's in a lot of his movies that they call the Triple X version. There is the movie on this disc. This is just hours of behind the scenes stuff, and some of it doesn't really have audio. If it does have audio, it's not very good audio. But if you do want to dive into that, it's hours upon hours of that type of stuff, and that's cool. But I was just happy to have the movie, and very impressed with how gross it goes or gets, and very impressed with the effects, because it's a probably a classic for its time. Um, I can definitely see why people were so fond of this at the time. It's 2009. It's it was a heck of a 1-2 punch after Gutterball. So yeah, Hanger probably the second best movie the man made. Although Starvehicle, aka Bleeding Lady, is pretty good in itself, so it may be a toss up on those. But yeah, this is a winner for me. Up next here we have Torch. This was, I think, Ryan Nicholson's first movie that came out back in the day. It's only 44 minutes long, which it barely toes the line for a full length movie, which I think Letterboxd says like 40 minutes and up is considered a full length now. Don't quote me on that, but it definitely toes the line. So in this movie, we have this woman that's attacked by a masked guy, and she is assaulted in a in and out sort of way. You got to be kind of careful what you say on YouTube these days. And later on, it happens again. And this time, when it happens again, though, she manages to take a taser that he's got on him, tase him, and at that point, she proceeds to torture the man a little bit with a torch. And of course, she's a nurse, so she has access to medical things because her boss, the main doctor, has a crush on her. So she takes some DNA samples and she goes to him. And while she's waiting on those results, she basically goes and does more very, very gruesome things to this man. In between that, she goes out and has like a little rendezvous with her neighbor. She's got a friend at work that's pushed her to go out and have more fun. Uh, and then eventually, at some point, she gets a crackhead to come and do things to this dude she's got captured. And that, with some other stuff, basically is when the stuff royally hits the fan with this movie. It's like it's very short, so it doesn't really hang around long enough to get you, tired of it. It's kind of like a zooped up version of I Spit on Your Grave, a lesser version of I Spit on Your Grave, but you kind of get that vibe with it. It's one of those R and revenge type movies. The stuff that happens with the torture stuff is probably where the movie is going to be most noticed, because it feels like a front runner with the whole Saw and Hostel stuff that was going on around the time this was released. So it's definitely in the torture P area, if you know what I'm saying. And there is some very, very gruesome stuff that happens to a man's genitals that makes you very squeamish and makes you move around very uncomfortably if you are a man when you watch it. So yeah, I had seen this before, but I don't know if I had watched an old DVD copy of it, or if I had watched like I think it was a Vultra VHS I had way back in the day, back when everybody was kind of re-upping on the VHSs. This thing, though, from Unearthed comes to us with some extras, though, unlike the Famine release. We've got a 16:9 upscaled version, which looks good. Like I said, a lot of his movies, Ryan Nixon movies, don't look that good on Blu-ray. That looks fine. There is a letterbox version if you want to get old school with it. There is also a Triple X version, but I think with all Ryan Nicholson Triple H versions or Triple H Triple X versions, it's just it shows like some up close penetration of something, and that's basically your XXX version of the film. But we also got a commentary, we got behind the scenes, we got interviews, trailers, over 5 hours of additional extras. So yeah, you definitely get a lot more to dive into with this movie, which it's good that they put that many extras on here because just by the movie itself, there's not a whole lot to it. I gave it a 3 out of 5. Wished it was longer. I mean, most indie films, the sweet spot for a lot of real indie movies tends to be about 70 minutes. So, you know, I don't know if they could figure that much more to put in there. But at the same time, you kind of wish it was more than just 44 minutes. But yeah, Torched is it's up there with as far as effects goes, some of the better stuff. But the movie itself isn't much that we haven't done seen. But I still liked it enough, and I gave it a 3 out of 5. You'll have to pardon me if I sound a little weird here in this video because since I last did a Ryan Nicholson movie, I have developed a cold. So yeah, that's always fun. Nonetheless, we bring us to Starvehicle here by Ryan Nicholson. I first seen this movie years ago when it was The Bleeding Lady. That's what it was called. And it was released then by, I believe it was Breaking Glass Pictures. It might have been under their Vicious Circle label, but it's Breaking Glass Pictures. And I kind of prefer the Bleeding Lady title. I don't know why they switched it to Starvehicle. I guess that's the original title. But I've heard people say that this is like the most mainstream Ryan Nicholson film. I don't know if that's true. This is the first Ryan Nicholson film I ever saw. If I said I watched Gutterballs first, I was mistaken. If I said that in the other video, I don't remember if I did or not. But this was definitely the first movie I seen. But you have Dan Ellis back again, and this is probably one of his better performances. Which I mean, I think all of his performances are good, but I think this one really stood out. And he's basically giving people a ride to and fro from a horror film. And there's a particular one girl, something Red. I can't think of her first name. Her last name's Red. He refers to her as Miss Red throughout the thing, and he's obsessed with her. He's like one of her biggest fans, and he's also a killer, which we know that because he kills her at the start of it. But he's real creepy with her, kind of, and real creepy with some people, and he's real strange. And we know what's up with him, but then we also hear she also has a stalker. So, it's kind of like one of them things where it's kind of like, well, that's got to be him, right? So, more or less, he takes them to their set, and then he drives them back, and he starts to have conflict with the director and stuff because the director's kind of a dick. He kind of has some issues with some other people there. But the funniest thing about it is like 30 minutes in, like almost kind of gets like being sure of what the audience is going to say. He's like, I know what you're thinking. I feel like that's a narration. He's like, I know what you're thinking. Like, when they're going to get on with the killing, don't worry, it's coming. And then he proceeds to do a kill there. So it's pretty self aware. And I really liked it a lot. I like the whole concept of the guy like driving them back and forth and being like an extra big horror nerd, but still, it's got blood in it. Maybe it's a little slow getting to the blood, but when you get there, it's all over the place. So this is definitely up there with me. It's like a 3.5 out of 5. One of my favorite Ryan Nicholson films. At one time, before I seen Gutterballs, I definitely would have probably said it was my favorite. So it's up there with Hanger, but not as good as Gutterballs as far as I'm concerned. And like I said, it's Dan Ellis's performance is great. You need to see it. It's also like most Ryan Nicholson movies. It's got like really dark humor to it. But this is a movie that I think the characters might be wielding enough to where, not the characters usually are kind of despisable all around. I think there's some that's somewhat likable in this thing. And this is a good release. It's also one of the better looking ones from Unearthed Films for Ryan Nicholson movies. I know Unearthed Films does great work, but Ryan Nicholson movies sometimes are shot on maybe some lower quality masters or whatnot. But this one looks pretty good, even if it kind of looks a little soap opera at times, I think. But I like the look for it. And your extras you get on this, you get the commentary with the director and Dan Ellis. You get Left Coast TV presents on a set of Starvehicle, Behind the Wheel of Bleeding Lady, Making of Starvehicle, Makeup Students, Acting Students, Deleted Scenes, Alternative Opening, Splatterfest at the Plaza Theater, and it features the entire Dead Nude Girls movie. So I think maybe I'd mentioned in one of my other videos, maybe they was going to release that. Well, obviously, I didn't pay attention to the fact that it is on here.
And quick bonus review for Dead New Girls. It stars Ryan Nicholson, and it lives up to its name. It's him basically stalking girls and then killing them in brutal ways. And as the movie progresses, it's only like 55 minutes long. The kills get more gruesome and more elaborate. There's some really nasty and gross out gore effects, but that's it. The rest of the movie, it's bad audio, bad acting, uh, too simple of a plot. There's really not much to it. It's just basically a gore reel for the most part, and there are naked women. So yeah, you get what you think you're going to get. But Dead New Girls seems like, I guess, just making something for the sake of making something. We always knew he was good at effects because he got paid to do effects for like big budget movies. But yeah, Dead New Girls is like a 1.5 out of 5. It's not that good, so I'm glad that they put it on here. I guess they kind of realized the quality of it, so and they put it as a bonus on this because it definitely would not stand up on its own. One thing I will mention here, while I like this movie a lot, the leading lady, when she starts to like freak out and like react to what's going on at the end of the movie, which is very bloody and it's really really cool, but she almost stands like a caveman while she's acting like traumatized and stuff, which it's not that bad, I don't think, but it's kind of distracting and it's kind of funny, and I don't think it's supposed to be, which I think she does good up till that point, but when she gets to that point, she kind of, I don't know, it gets pretty awkward. But other than that, Star Vehicle, one of my favorites. Check it out.